Hi, welcome back to our series, Typical Mistakes the French Make. Today we're going to talk about my top 5 phrasal verbs. Now, what are phrasal verbs exactly? They don't necessarily exist in French. Phrasal verbs are verbs with verbs and prepositions, and the usage of the both together create a new meaning to the sentence. So we have 2 categories. We have phrasal verbs that can be separated, meaning the verb and the preposition can be separated. And then we have phrasal verbs that cannot be separated. The verb and the preposition need to stay together. So I'm going to talk about the first category. The first category of phrasal verbs are the verbs that can be separated. Okay, so the first verb or phrasal verb that we cannot separate is the phrasal verb to set up. There are 2 meanings to this particular phrasal verb. The first meaning is to either create something or an organization. For example, I set up my company in my 20s. Or if we were to separate the phrasal verb, I can also say, I set my company up in my 20s. It's the same meaning in French. J'ai créé mon entreprise dans la vingtaine. So that's the first meaning of set up. Now, the second meaning of set up can also mean to organize or to arrange something. For example, I can say, he set up this party, meaning in French, il a organisé cette fête. Another way we can use it is, for example, in a question, could you please set up this meeting? Pouvez-vous programmer ces rendez-vous, for example? Okay, so that's usually how we use that phrasal verb. Okay, the second phrasal verb that we can separate is the phrasal verb to call off something, okay? Or to call something off. In this case, this phrasal verb means to cancel, simply. It's pretty great. So, for example, if I have a meeting and I would like to cancel this meeting, I would say, can we please call this meeting off? Or can we please call off this meeting? In this case, it has the same meaning in French. Est-ce qu'on peut annuler cette réunion? Okay, so now we're going to go to the second category of phrasal verbs, the phrasal verbs that cannot be separated. So please don't separate these because they will have a completely different meaning, if not no meaning at all, if you separate these. So the first phrasal verb that we cannot separate is the phrasal verb to come up with. What does this mean exactly? To come up with is actually to either find a solution or an idea to a problem or a project or stuff like that. So for example, he had to come up with a solution for his problem. Il devait trouver une solution pour son problème, for example. That's the kind of phrasal verb we use. So come up with, cannot separate it. Okay, so the next phrasal verb that cannot be separated is the phrasal verb to go over something. Okay, what is to go over something? It simply just means to review something. For example, I can go over my notes from class. Je peux réviser mes notes de classe. It could also mean other things. For example, I can go over this work contract with the CEO, for example, which means je peux relire ces contrats de travail avec le PDG. So we have those kinds of examples, and that's a phrasal verb, go over something that cannot be separated. Okay, the third of this category in terms of phrasal verbs is the phrasal verb to run past. For example, we can say, he ran past my house. Il est passé à pied devant ma maison. Okay, so this is a phrasal verb that cannot be separated. But here's a good example. If you do separate this phrasal verb, it changes the phrase completely. If you say, for example, can I run this project past you? It means in French, solliciter. And in this case, that phrase, can I run this project past you? The direct translation would be, est-ce que je peux solliciter tes conseils pour ces projets? So that's what happens when you separate that phrasal verb.